The thing that people have kind of missed in reference to the Dave Clark Five is those were big, powerful, nasty sounding records, man. Bigger, much bigger sounding than, say, the Stones or the Beatles.
Or the Beatles.
Much bigger sounding. And there was an enormous debate of, is it the Beatles or the Dave Clark Five, you know? And there were magazines that came out, Beatles versus Dave Clark Five. Glad All Over came on, which was their first hit in the States. This thing sounded like it was ripping out of the radio. There was no bigger stage for presentation in the States at that time. If you were on the Ed Sullivan Show, you were huge.
And this is where we start to get into interesting parallels, I think, with our band. They were unique in that, very simply, because of the saxophone.
That's right. I wonder if you were going to say that. You know, I mean, like, they had the saxophone, man. They had the saxophone. We used to go into the supermarket and put on an English accent at the checkout for the checkout girl. You know, it's like all the guys in there, we used to practice. You know, everybody in the States practiced an English accent, you know, for about a year after the British invasion hit, you know. They had one of the all-time great singers, Mike Smith's voice.
Wow.
Because one of the greatest rock and roll singers. You listen to him on I Like It Like That. Come on.
Come on, come on, let me show you.
You could always tell Dave Clark's drumming by his signature snare drum sound. A build on the tom and the snare drum was something that Dave would do, you know, bum, 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 bum. And that's how I learned how to play the drums.
The Dave Clark Five are one of the few British bands of the day that never replaced their drummer.
The band was led by a drummer. There's not that many of those out there, you know? And there's arrangements that were built around the drums. You match that with a guy that knew what to do with that. I don't know what Dave did, but the production, as Steve can tell you, was unmatched. Still, in many ways, you know,
The most powerful records ever made.
On a nightly basis, if I played 20, 25 songs with Bruce and the E Street Band, I would say in at least 20 or 25 songs, you will hear a lot of Dave Clark rolls, as we refer to them, and little things, builds on the tom-toms, you know. They came up with those songs, you know. They're just a great.
And Mike and Dave deserve to be that sort of famous songwriting duo, just like, you know, I think he's like Lennon McCartney or Jagger and Richards. I mean, you know, they were that good.
Well, the concert that I saw the Dave Clark Five perform live, it was just a life-changing experience for me. I couldn't get over the fullness of the sound. It sounded great. Of course, they played all, you know, several hits. They played so well. He sounded so great on the drums. I just never heard a sound like that. And I was sitting close enough to be able to actually, you know, hear every note.
The actual sound of the band was the band. And when you go and see them live, they sounded like that. I mean, you know, it was like, wow. There are a lot of parallels to our band, you know, when you went, in that sense of having the performance thing cooking, you know, maybe even before they recorded.
All the initial hits, they had enormous impact when they first hit in the States.
Yeah, the Dave Clark Five were everywhere in that period, from around 64 to 66. You know, I looked it up. They scored 15 consecutive top 20 hits on the U.S. charts. That's more than any other band in the world, except the Beatles.
They had such an impact right after the Beatles, you know, that it was just, you know, it was nice to see that happen. The records were thrilling. They were just thrilling, inspiring. When they came on, they were simply exciting. You want to go first?